Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. Let's call this Freeing the Monster Left Behind. Before I get into it, I just want to mention we've got some new patrons. Gavin, who is an Astral Scout, Ricky Bravo, who is an Astral Master, Nigel, who is an Astral Master, and Shadow, who is Astral Ascended. And they will all continue now to get advance videos on Sunday, and these will be commercial free, and they'll be able to talk back and forth with me, ask questions, offer ideas. And for anyone who is interested in private astral projection lessons with me, there will be a link in the description with an email address where you can contact me for more info. And if you're interested in Patreon, there'll be a link in the description as well. If some of you, I'm sure, remember a number of months back in an episode that I called Resistance Rescue from Astral Hell, I was sent by my angel to rescue a member of the council who had been tricked and kidnapped by the master, otherwise known as Gulam, and he had been imprisoned in the lower astral hell. For those who might be new or a little sketchy on what that is, I'll describe that to you. I've been there a number of times and I have intensely disliked it each time. It is a place of ultimate despair. Now, unlike Christian myth, no one sends you there. You send yourself there. It's what happens when your astral body deteriorates to a point where you refuse to reincarnate, you refuse all offers of help, and you are in no way able to ascend to a higher plane like the mental plane. So what happens? Well, your soul cannot deteriorate. It is immortal. Your astral body, though, is not immortal. Once your physical body terminates, once it dies, the astral body begins the deterioration process as well. Now, it may take 100 years, maybe longer. It depends on each individual. However, eventually it deteriorates. And by that time, you have to either ascend to a different level, maybe head off to a different planet to reincarnate if you choose and are able to do that, or you have to reincarnate on Earth. If you refuse to do any of those things and your energy just depletes and depletes, you will sink to what I call the lower astral hell. It is a place of ultimate despair where what you have there is souls who are so self-loathing, who are so low energy that they feel they belong in this place. Now, I know this can be difficult to understand, but has anyone ever felt so depressed that in a weird way it felt good? If you felt that, and I have felt that in my life as well, as weird as it might sound to certain people, that's how you feel in the lower astral. And eventually your soul sinks into a sort of torpor, a sort of semi-coma, and there you will continue to exist until something happens, until you cry out in some positive, powerful way that attracts help and that you were then willing to accept that help. You'd be surprised how many souls, when they've reached that point, are no longer open to that cry of help and are no longer willing to accept that help, to leave that place. They feel like they belong there. They get to a point where they're actually afraid to leave. As incredible as all this sounds, it's true. I visited there a number of times. The first time I was taken there in my astral guide school, and it was a educational type trip. And I kind of got separated willfully from the class, went off on my own, and then I was sent back there as kind of a semi punishment, semi learning opportunity, where I was able to save a soul who was willing to be saved, whose name was Mary, and I had some experiences with her. And there's some videos on the channel describing my efforts to help her rise from this place and then to eventually reincarnate. There's someone else down there that I met as well. And that was my trip to rescue that council member in the Resistance Rescue from Astral Hell. When I went down there, I found myself face to face once again with a creature that I had met in an old closed prison in Philadelphia. And he had died 100 years or more before, and he had been guilty of horrible crimes, which I won't speak about now. And he died there, but his spirit had continued to haunt the place. When I saw him, he looked to me like a toad, so I called him Toadman. And he tried to attack me, and he was shunted aside as my angel was there to protect me at that point. When we left, I never hoped to ever see him again. Unfortunately, he had allied himself, and I found this out when I was interviewing Gulam, or the Master, that his name was William, and that the Master had somehow managed to help him leave the Astral Hell, which I had attempted to do as well, but he had wanted nothing to do with me. He had wanted no help from me, so there was nothing I could do, but somehow Gulam, or the Master, had been able to talk him out of it. So I was kind of doubly surprised when I went to rescue the counselor, only to find that Toadman, or William, if you will, was guarding him. It had been placed there by his master to guard this counselor. When this happened, I was in a bad situation, because if I had to fight tooth and nail with this toad creature to free the counselor, who was depleted in energy and couldn't assist me in any way, I would lose energy, and I would be lucky if I could get myself out of there, much less take this depleted counselor with me. So I was able to convince Toadman, or William, not to resist me, and to convince him that he had been taken advantage of by his master and perhaps abandoned there, in exchange for a promise that I made to come and rescue him at a later date. He agreed not to fight me and waste my energy, so that I was able to get that counselor out of there, rescue him, and then return him to his rightful place on our council in the astral. I have had Astral Club members asking me just recently what was going on with him, and it was curious because this had occurred, and it felt like they were reading my mind, and I thought that now was the time to tell the story. I went to my angel a few weeks back, and I informed him of the promise that I had made. to return to the lower astral hell and to free this this Toadman, this creature that I had made this promise to. I'd given my word to free him. He naturally expressed reservations. He understood my sense of honor when it comes to honoring my promise, but he was concerned for me. This was a very dangerous place, and he and our forces are stretched very thin right now. The master is putting up a very good fight, and if something happens to me, it may be quite a while before any rescue effort could be sent to get me. So I was risking quite a lot to fulfill this promise. I told my angel that I was aware of that, and and he also said, "Don't forget the master is full of trickery. You never know what he's up to." I said I understood all of that. However, a promise is a promise, and I'm bound by this promise, or else I'm just as bad as the master, who will tell whatever lie will suit him to get his way. And I said, if I'm every bit as guilty as he is of that lack of honor, then what separates us? How are we any different? If you're going to fight monsters, you must not yourself become a monster. He wished me well, and that's all he could do. With not a lot of joy, I zoned in on the ident of the lower astral hell. And it was all too easy to get there, and materializing in that same chamber of horrors, that chamber of darkness and despair that physically resembles a cavern full of stalactites and stalagmites, but it's just a place of ultimate despair, a place of hopelessness, a place where there is no light. Not, I mean, literally, you can see, but it's a place that's as far from light as you can get. Just walking, as I started to walk, it felt like the floor was grasping onto me. Like with every step, I was proceeding down the same tunnel I had before. It just felt like the floor itself was trying to hold me down. And I clothed myself once more in my favorite black cloak with a staff. I found that when you're in strange places, it's one of the best ways to clothe yourself, because many creatures will just stay out of your way because they're not sure what exactly you are, and so it's best to stay away. Of course, I could try to share with you what the psychic impressions were. The whimpers, the occasional psychic cries, screams, moans, other sounds that I won't discuss. It's it's impossible, and I'm glad that it's impossible, actually, for me to convey to you accurately what this place is like. Consider yourself fortunate that I can't convey it telepathically. I pushed myself forward, willing myself to that same chamber where I had found Toadman and that counselor, trying my best to ignore what I would see occasionally on my left or on my right as creatures or other things slithered away from me, things that had once been perhaps human, but had long ago degraded. So I finally reached the place where I had found the Toadman and the counselor. And there, squatting, looking at me with these beady eyes, was the Toadman. And he croaked at me, "So you have returned." That's my best Toadman from a telepathic standpoint. And I said, yes, I had, because I promised that I would return for you if you did not fight me when I was saving the counselor. He then responded, and I'm not going to do the voice anymore. He then responded that he didn't believe me. He figured I would just leave him there and that I was just lying and that he had been abandoned again. I told him no. I said I had given my word that I would come back for him, and I am here to do that. He stared at me suspiciously and said, "Why are you really here? I'm not going to ally myself with you and your rebellious council. You know that, right?" I said that wasn't part of any deal. I said I would welcome any help that is freely offered because we need to restore the rightful council. But no, I don't expect you to do anything. I gave you my word that I would take you out of here. Whatever you do from there is your free will. I hope that you decide to devote yourself to a better course than you have in the future, but that's not my responsibility. That's your responsibility. I can't force you to do anything against your will, and I wouldn't if I could. Now it's time to go. Please follow me. He started moving towards me, but then he screeched out, "Wait!" I turned to him and I said, "Wait for what? Let's just get out of this place." He said, "You don't understand. My master has been here. He somehow knew you would come back. I told him that you wouldn't, but he somehow knew you would. We can't go back the way you came." I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because he has a trap. You will be swarmed by entities who will suck every bit of energy out of you, and you will never leave this place. I was supposed to lure you down that hallway." Well, I was shocked. I can't say, thinking back to the master always seems to be a step or two ahead of me. I can't say I was surprised, but I was now at a loss as to what to do. This was the only way out that I knew. Then I also thought, what if he's lying to me? What if there is no trap and he's got something up his sleeve? So I said, "Well, then how do we get out of here?" He said, "You must trust me. Follow me. We will go another way that will lead us back to that cavern where we can then leave." I looked at him and he could tell exactly what I was thinking. He said, "You're going to have to trust me as I was forced to trust you. And now you've shown me that I can trust you. So now you must allow me to show you that I can be trusted, at least in this." I had no choice. I decided to follow him and hope that I wasn't being led into some trap instead of away from one. He took me down a whole nother corridor which I had never seen. It was so dark that I felt my way along the wall just to keep up with him. It was dark in a way that it felt oppressive. It felt like I couldn't breathe, even though my astral body doesn't breathe. And the feeling of the walls as I slid my hand along them, it felt like slime and hatred. I don't know how else to explain it. But I continued to follow his voice, and he led me along. And I hoped that this wasn't into some eternal trap that I would never emerge from. We walked for what seemed like an eternity, and then we finally emerged out into the central cavern. And I was, to say the least, happy, which is probably the first time I've ever felt that emotion in this particular place, because this is not a place where one feels anything positive, much less happy. And he croaked, I said, you could trust me in this, and you can. And here I have taken us here. Now fulfill your promise and allow me the energy so that we may both leave here. Well, I gave him the energy he needed, and we both left that horrible place. And I am hoping for the last time. I have been there entirely too much, and quite frankly, it haunts my dreams from time to time. And I don't need that particular stimulus to give me occasional nightmares, believe me. When we emerged into the lower astral, it seemed like a vacation land compared to where we had just been. I asked him what he would do now, and he said, I will go where I wish to go. I said, well, all I can do then is wish you well, and I hope you make decisions that will benefit you and your soul in the future. He gave me a weird smirk, but he also gave me another look that I hadn't seen from him before. Perhaps a little bit of thankfulness, a little bit of respect. I'm not sure. But he then just scampered away and disappeared. I returned to my angel to tell him what had happened. He was relieved that Toadman, or William, had decided not to cooperate with his master's trap, because who knows how long I might have been stuck down there in that lower astral hell. And he said he suspected that this creature will have some part to play yet in this whole mess. And I said I suspected as much, as some of my Astral Club members have as well. And you all know who you are. And you can leave notes in the comments if you like. If you like this experience, hit the like button, share it with those of like minds. Subscribe if you haven't already. Once again, questions and comments. I'm always looking for that stuff. If you'd like some private astral projection lessons, there'll be an email in the description where you can contact me for information. And of course, I want to thank my patrons. And if you'd like to join Astral Club on Patreon, there will also be a link in the description. And as always, this is Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.